I think the tarp is one of the most misunderstood pieces of outdoor gear. Most people think of tarps as things that only the most extreme ultralight backpacker would take into the woods, and that when they do so, they sacrifice comfort for weight. But those of us who use tarps on a regular basis know that they're actually much more versatile and more comfortable than any tent system, especially in wet weather. So today what I'd like to do is show you how I set up my tarp to get the most out of it. Okay, so let's get started by tying the ridgeline. I'm going to tie what's called a Siberian hitch. You could use the round turn with 2 half hitches if you prefer, but this hitch is great and it's quick release. With the other side of your ridgeline, I'm going to tie what's called a power cinch, because it's really important to have a super tight ridgeline. If you don't, what happens is every time you adjust one of your guy lines, the tarp starts to sink down and then it never really gets tight. So what I want to do is first form a loop like this, okay? And then I reach through the loop on the side of the tree, and what I've done essentially is form a pulley. So I put the working end through this pulley, and now what I do, so now when I pull, as you can see, you can get really tight on this ridgeline like so. And now what you want to do is hold right here where it joins the pulley that you've created and put in a slippery half hitch right there. Okay, and that holds it all together. Now that our ridgeline is up and secure, we're going to work on the tarp. This is a 13.9 ounce sil nylon tarp. It's made by a company called Equinox. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the center and we're going to take these attached lines and go over and around like this, okay, in opposite directions. And what this does is it puts a nice bite down on the ridgeline that keeps it from sliding. So we're going to do that to the other 2 attached lines. Now the last 2 ends of this particular tarp just have a grommet. So what I do is I tie a prusik hitch to my ridgeline with a separate piece of paracord. And then I just tie this on, just like so, just again with a bow. But what a prusik hitch does is it really keeps your tarp from sliding down. You can see how if I pull on this tarp, I don't lose any length. So that way if a storm comes along, your head or feet don't get wet. I came up with this system for guying out the tarp because what I wanted was something that would be permanently attached to the tarp so I could put it together quickly, but also something that if I get to a place and the weather is definitely turning bad, I can stake right to the ground. So I would take a shepherd hook stake, go into the corners of the grommets, and go right to the ground with a lower ridge line. That's going to give me the most stability in bad weather. So what I have now that it's all unraveled is basically one line that is my corner guy out line, and then my other 2 cords here. This one is going to the middle grommet, and this one is going to the one next to it. And what this does is through tensioning knots, which I'll show you in a little bit, it spreads the weight across the entire length of the tarp instead of just pulling on the corners. So I'm just going to guy this out and we'll set it up. Okay, that's looking pretty good, but the corners, as you can see, are bearing most of the strain, and the middle in a high wind would really bow in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use tensioning knots that are attached to those other guy lines, and I'm going to just go around, first working towards the middle, and then doing the sides. So here's a nice shot of the side of the tarp. You can see that the tension is spread across the entire length of the tarp without having guy lines all over the place that you're going to trip on and that take forever to set up. So I'll try to give you a detailed shot of how this is guyed out. So there's the corner stake. As you can see, it goes up here. This is where they all connect. And then you can see there's my tensioning knot, and then it goes to the middle grommet. Another thing I do to get the most out of my tarp is I hang a line on the inside of the tarp from one side to the other. Okay, and I use this line to hang headlamps or wet clothes or anything like that. So now that our tarp's set up, you can see the advantages of this if it was raining. I have a place to cook, I have all this dry area to do whatever I wanted to do, I can hang my clothes up, I can look around, and I'm not trapped inside of a little tent. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do when it's time to pack up is I'm going to loosen all the tensioning knots all the way around the tarp. So when you wrap up these guy lines, you want to make sure everything is nice and neat. Okay, so I'm just going to hank that cord around my hand till I get to where they all join, and then I let this corner one drop out, and I'm just going to wrap up the middle two until I get to that center grommet. Okay, and I want to make this nice and tight, so I'm just going to wrap it up with a rubber band right there. Take it off my fingers, wrap it up. Okay, there it is, nice and clean. I'm glad we're able to continue the tradition of passing knowledge to each other, and I hope that you found something in this video interesting enough to try on your own setup. All of this, by the way, is available on my website, bushcraftnorthwest.com. Go to the articles link and you'll see a tent setup and also a knots link, which will describe in better detail how to do what I did on this video. So thanks very much for watching. Hope to see you again.